Thank you. Well, let me get started, and thank you and good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm sorry that I'm not there in person, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you via Zoom. So I want to admit up front that I'm perhaps the most unlikely contributor to this august group. I'm by no means an expert in quantum computing, although I'm learning fast. I am, however, the president of a university in the United States that has made a very significant bet on quantum computing as part of our future. And today I hope to explain to you why we've done this. As relevant context for what I want to talk about, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to share a little bit about myself, and then I'll like to introduce you to my university, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, or RPI in short, as I suspect many of you may not know much about RPI, although I appreciate that some of you do. First, about myself. I received my bachelor's degree from RPI in electrical engineering, after which I went to MIT to pursue my master's and PhD degrees. My field of study was and is semiconductors. And upon completion of my graduate degrees, I joined the faculty at MIT, ultimately becoming part of the senior administration. And for 8 years, I served as MIT's provost. As provost, I played a leadership role in the creation of the Schwarzman College of Computing at MIT, which was enabled by a transformative $350 million gift from Steven Schwarzman. The College of Computing was created in recognition of the transformative role that computing, and more specifically AI and machine learning, were having on all academic disciplines. What I learned in that experience informs much of what I'll speak to you today about. I did return to RPI 2 years ago after 41 years at MIT to serve as RPI's president. A little bit about RPI. As was mentioned, we're located in Troy, New York, about 150 miles north of New York City on the Hudson River. RPI is predominantly an undergraduate institution with approximately 6,000 undergraduate students. We also have a robust graduate research program, largely focused on engineering and science, with more than 1,000 graduate students. Because our undergraduate student body is much larger than our graduate student body, we tend to have a greater focus on undergraduate education compared to other STEM-centric research universities in the US, which typically have a much larger graduate student population. And a unique feature of our undergraduate education is a strong focus on hands-on and experiential learning. We have a long history of innovation in education as well. In the 50s and 60s, RPI faculty produced some of the most frequently used textbooks in science and engineering in the nation. In the early 1990s, RPI was ahead of its time in introducing the flipped classroom as a more effective means to teach physics to first-year students. Also in that time frame, RPI was the first university in the United States to create an incubator to support student entrepreneurship. Today, we continue to pursue new educational tools, including the use of immersive environments and other AI-enabled means to enhance education. We also enjoy a great reputation in terms of the quality of our graduates. We rank third amongst all higher ed institutions in the United States in terms of the percent of our graduates who go on to become inventors. Our engineering undergraduate program ranks sixth in the United States in terms of its ability to place our graduates in top PhD programs in the country. And rankings based on economic advancement, 10 years post-graduation, consistently place RPI as one of the top programs in the country. So in short, while you might not have heard of us, perhaps because of our size, the effectiveness of our programs is amongst one of the strongest in the United States. With respect to our history, we were established in 1824, and this year we celebrate our bicentennial as the first and oldest technological university in the U.S. Our founder, Stephen Van Rensselaer, envisioned a new type of institution at that time, one which would instruct persons in the application of science to the common purposes of life. That instruction was intended to include hands-on learning by our students, which was somewhat of a disruption in its day. Our graduates in the first 100 years achieved important engineering milestones, including the design and construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, which was the largest suspension bridge of its time. They also created systems for clean municipal water in the late 1800s, and they designed and constructed the Panama Canal. More recently, RPI has played a major role in the space program. George Low, an alumni who became the 14th president of RPI, actually authored the memo which convinced President Kennedy to commit the United States to putting a man on the moon. And Lowe subsequently guided NASA to achieve that goal. Reed Weissman, another RPI graduate, spent 6 months aboard the International Space Station in 2014, and next year he will serve as mission commander of Artemis II, the first crewed mission to go beyond low Earth orbit since Apollo 17 in 1972. RPI alumni have also played a large role in the semiconductor and computer industries. RPI grads have co-founded Texas Instruments, Fairchild Semiconductor, and NVIDIA. In addition, RPI engineers invented the first microprocessor while at Intel, the first digital camera while at Kodak, and the first person-to-person email system. And finally, relevant to today's topic, RPI has a history of having state-of-the-art computers on our campus, largely through our large, long-standing partnership with IBM. This included state-of-the-art computers in 1982, and more recently, the Amos supercomputer, an 8 petaflop IBM system, which is today the most powerful supercomputer at an American private university. So I suppose given this history with computers, it wouldn't be a surprise that RPI would want to be the first university to have an IBM quantum system on its campus. And here it is, housed in a chapel which now serves as the home of our computing activities on campus. Our decision to acquire the quantum computer was catalyzed by a conversation in March of last year between myself and Dr. John Kelly, the RPI board chair, who for more than a decade led IBM research and drove their quantum computing activities, and this gentleman, Curtis Preem, a 1982 graduate of RPI and a co-founder of NVIDIA. After several discussions, we decided that now was the time to begin to make RPI quantum ready. In other words, to boldly move RPI into quantum computing in anticipation of the moment when quantum computers achieve a performance level that enables them to solve problems you will never, in any reasonable time frame, solve using a classical computer. Now, I'll acknowledge that there is a wide variation of opinion as to when we'll achieve that moment of so-called quantum supremacy, but I think most would agree that this moment will come. And in that sense, you might question our timing, but hopefully not our decision to make RPI quantum ready. This was not an easy decision, as it represents a financial commitment of well in excess of $100 million, not an insignificant commitment for an institution of our size and resources. So let me share with you our thinking as to why we felt this was the right thing to do. For me, there were two observations that catalyzed my sense of the need to make this move. The first is the observation that the rate at which new technologies are being adopted has been increasing dramatically, particularly as pertains to computer technologies. New breakthroughs, like we've seen with generative AI, are getting adopted at breakneck speed. This has several consequences. First, we as a nation find ourselves facing a talent sourcing challenge as we seek to be leaders globally in an emerging technology. And second, and perhaps most importantly, while the notion of move fast and break things seems to be a catalyst for rapid adaptation or adoption of technology, this notion seems willfully negligent when we have not taken the time to thoughtfully consider the societal and ethical implications of new technology. In short, we need to be prepared for this technological disruption and not respond to it when it arrives. The other catalyst was our action was based on an experience I had while at MIT back about 10 years ago. This was a time when I think many of us were caught unprepared for the unprecedented breakthroughs in AI and machine learning that were emerging. I recall vividly conversations I was having with CTOs of the top technology companies in the US at that time who were wholly unprepared for this disruptive new capability. Even at MIT, we were finding intense demand from students that wanted to learn these technologies, with nearly a quarter of the entire undergraduate student body registering for a machine learning class 1 year. And the massive transformation of disciplines as our researchers discovered how to use these tools to drive their scholarly work. And finally, an insatiable demand for computing resources across the university, frankly, in places we could not have foreseen. As an example, anthropologists and political scientists who traditionally might have conducted their research through extensive field studies were now transforming their research practices through innovative use of machine learning algorithms that allowed the manipulation of massive data sets to develop hypotheses and robustly test them without ever going into the field. And in so doing, they were now looking for enormous computer resources. So reflecting on all of this, we decided our focus should be on getting an IBM Quantum System 1 on our campus. Now, you might ask, what do we hope to see happen over the next few years? So in my closing remarks, let me share with you 3 goals we have in mind. As to our first goal, we know that quantum computing will eventually be superior to classic computing for certain problems. However, we need to know which problems map well onto a quantum computer and how to use a quantum computer to solve them. And by the way, this can't just be sorted out by the computer science faculty. We need all of our faculty in disciplines that span engineering, science, humanities and social sciences, management and architecture to become reasonably conversant in quantum computing. You might refer to this as becoming bilingual. In other words, I need our researchers to not only be conversant in their discipline, but also in the discipline of quantum computing. This will enable us to develop the algorithms that are needed. We also don't necessarily need to wait for improvements in the current quantum computers to make real progress. At your meeting today, Dr. Jay Gambetta of IBM described work between IBM and RPI, where we are pursuing quantum-centric supercomputing by linking our Quantum System 1 through very high speed and low latency networking with our AMOS supercomputer. So in summary, our first goal is to figure out where and how we are going to use quantum computing. And to do this, we will also take the time to contemplate how to most responsibly deploy this emerging technology. Our second goal is to leverage our legacy of creating new educational materials and methods to be a leader in teaching the use of quantum computing. As this technology takes root, I don't think we can expect those who will use quantum computers to have a deep understanding of quantum physics or the details of concepts like coherence and entanglement. In particular, as this computing capability advances, we'll need what I would characterize as abstractions, namely simplified methods to understand this technology so that it can be implemented by many. While it's not a perfect analog, I think of the pioneering work done by Lynn Conway and Carver Mead in the late 70s, which unlocked our ability to design complex integrated circuits. What Mead and Conway did was to devise a simplistic way to represent transistors and transistor circuits, which enabled engineers to design complex circuits without a detailed understanding of solid-state physics. I believe we need these type of abstractions to enable the broad deployment of quantum computing. And what better way to develop this than by learning how to teach undergraduates how to use a quantum computer? Our final goal is to develop the workforce that will drive the adoption of quantum computing. This development requires efforts on many fronts. First, and perhaps most obviously, is development of college graduates skilled in quantum computing. But in addition, we need to recognize that when this technology reaches its new potential, businesses will be profoundly impacted in much the same way we have seen businesses impacted by AI and machine learning, and now generative AI. I'm reminded of a conversation about 6 years ago between a senior executive in the biopharma industry and an AI and machine learning faculty expert. This executive was expressing frustration that in spite of tens of millions of dollars per year that his company was spending, he wasn't seeing positive results. Without missing a beat, my esteemed faculty member commented that this was because the work they were doing was, to put it bluntly, crap. And the managers didn't know that. All this is to say that we can't just focus on new graduates. We need to develop means to educate new organizations, entire organizations, on the transformative potential of quantum computing. I believe that we need to start this work now by helping companies understand this technology. This is why we at RPI are launching an online 8-week course in the fall that is targeted to technology managers for them to begin to understand quantum computing. Lastly and finally, I will admit that this is a very parochial statement, but we at RPI want to cultivate a talent pool and an ecosystem in New York State. I would note that the foundational work in quantum computing being done in IBM research is in Yorktown Heights, roughly 2 hours south of us at RPI. And IBM's quantum computers are manufactured in Poughkeepsie, roughly 1 hour south of RPI. We're working with our partner higher ed institutions in the region to help them develop strength in education and research in quantum computing. In so doing, we're working to create an ecosystem around quantum computing. We also believe that the access to a quantum computer will be a magnet for talent. And as an example of that, within a few short weeks of announcing our plans to get a quantum computer, about 50 students at RPI spontaneously formed a quantum computing club, and that club has grown dramatically. Here you see the officers of that club at our groundbreaking event in the fall. We're also finding that tours to see the quantum computer are the most popular part of our campus tours for potential new students and faculty. My hope and dream is that the Hudson River Valley will become recognized as Quantum Valley, springing up new enterprises that are unlocked by the power of quantum computing and driven by the talent and the ecosystem that we will create in New York State. I thank you for your attention.